Cyber Reapers. Hello, Cyber Reapers. So, tonight or today, whenever, wherever you are, I would like to talk about a book. So tonight, I'm going to talk about the second book of a duology. So if you're here for the last book I talked about, that was I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me by Jamison Shea. This is the second book of that duology. Just making sure I get the title right. There we go. That answers when you call. I Am the Dark That Answers When You Call. That is the second book. They're kind of long titles in comparison to some other titles you might see. But it's really, really neat whenever they come up in the story because the titles do appear at one point during each of the books. Or rather, the first book's title appears in the first book. This book's title appears in the second book. And it's a really cool moment whenever the title drops. So, very cool, very cool. As always, you don't have to have read the first book to listen to me talk about the second. And you don't even have to have listened to the first video to hear me talk about the second. And I'll be vague as much as I can about what happens in this one while talking about the aspects that I liked. So, where do we start? So our main character, her name is Lore. Lore, short for Lawrence. And she, in the first book, dedicated her life to ballet. She was a student for quite some time, and then in order to earn a spot in a ballet company, she had to get noticed. But being a poor black queer teenage girl, she, was not high on the list in comparison to other people, despite being the first in her class, just because she was having to work extra hard in a world that favored white, affluent ballet students. So she had to work extra hard to even just get noticed. But as soon as she was noticed, her skills got her all the way through. So what did she do to get noticed? Well, a experienced ballerina took notice of Lore's work ethic and decided to show Lore a little secret, a secret that not many people know about. Deep below the ground of Paris, which is where this takes place, there's this blood river, and you can make deals with it. Why? Who knows? But for whatever reason, if you give some of your blood to it, it might give you a wish for a period of time. And so, what Lore desired was to be revered. Lore wanted to be a star. She wanted the attention on her. And she didn't even necessarily want, like, a boost in skill, because she has the skill. It's just having people actually give her a chance to show it off that she needed. And so, this bloody river went, alright, you intrigue me. Your devotion to ballet, your passion is neat, so I will give you 3 months of essentially you being able to have sway over how people think and act. So she can just kind of command other people to do things like to pay attention to her. So she tries her best to not get noticed, but shenanigans happen. So And yeah, it seems like it's not necessarily the safest thing to have made a deal with the Blood River god. But yeah. So events of this book result in her kind of finding a found family. She ends up being in a found family, and she ends up kind of embracing her inner darkness and her inner monster. And on top of all that, what else? Romance. A really neat romantic bond forms between her and another person who made a deal with the Bloody River. But yeah. So, what can I say? I guess I will say that after the events of the first book, Lore has separated herself from, like, the ballet company that she was at. And for reasons, she's feeling kind of lost. She doesn't really feel the drive she used to, the ambition, the motivation that carried her through life. So she's kind of aimlessly going from thing to thing. She's partying, she's drinking, she's even distancing herself from the people that she cares about. And, you know, it's kind of starting to worry people. Let me go and put this down. So, now that she's in this not great space, drifting and unable to really figure out what she wants in life or who she is really anymore. On top of that, though, she, for reasons that I won't get into, she's able to hear the Blood River god talk to her. That's not normal for most of them. Most of the people who received favors from the Blood River god. So she's got kind of this god just with her all the time. And so she's getting used to that and the power that comes from that. And also, she's finding, there are other people who have made deals in the area that I didn't know about. And, oh no, now our like, new home that Lord just kind of started feeling at home in is slowly decaying away. So, a lot of problems are coming up, essentially a lot of problems that Lore doesn't really know where to start in solving, especially because she's not receiving a lot of help, and she's not reaching out to the people that really could help her. So, a lot of issues come up from this. And if she is going to have any hope of saving this new home of hers and kind of reclaiming her sense of self and reaching out again to reform the bonds of her found family, and also figure out how to address all these other people making deals and wanting to take over the world and be revered as gods. If she wants to handle all that, she's gonna have to get herself together, essentially, is kind of what she figures out. And the way that she has to do that, now that she's pushed everything away, she is starting from ground level of who is Lore, who am I, who do I want to be, and from there she figures it out. And it's such a cool process of seeing from book 1 to book 2 of her breaking down completely, and then the process of book 2 is her rebuilding herself back up. It's such a neat experience to read that. It's so good. So that is essentially this book, right? It's got a lot of like internal and external issues, a lot of relationship related stuff, and also also, save the world kind of stuff is mixed in there as well. And to do that, to save the world, she's got to figure out, okay, how can I become the strongest monster out of all of us monsters in order to protect what I care about? And seeing her having, kind of messed up her relationships too is really painful to begin with, but seeing it mend is so relieving. She really just goes through a lot. And I think it's really hopeful too to experience that with her and to kind of go, oh yeah, even though you as a person might break down completely and push people away and feel like you've hit rock bottom, there's so much that you can do to just slowly pick yourself back up from there, even when the world is demanding so much from you. It's just it feels very hopeful to me, even though this is technically, a fantasy horror book. It feels very hopeful and very supportive in a way. So that's kind of, I love that about the first book and this book. It's very hopeful to me. Yeah. I forgot to mention about Laura's character growth. Another aspect is really just the way she deals with her anger and her forgiveness. Because in book 1, when she was given all that power, she had a hard time holding it back. She had a hard time whenever she kept dealing with all the pesky things and, really mean people in her way. She had a hard time not using that power. Even sometimes instinct just broke through and resulted in her just kind of going, nope, gonna use violence against this person without meaning to. But book 2, she really learns to manage it in such a way where she becomes so, she figures out how to work with it. And I like that she tries to choose peace at every turn, at every time someone tries provoking her. It's very different from early on version of her. She's grown quite a bit. And it feels almost like she's aged in a way, that her experience has made her more wise, even though you can also definitely see that she has a lot to learn. She feels like she's definitely been through all the experiences of the first book. It feels so... She's such a strongly well-written character, I think. I love Lore. So, we're also then introduced to a new character. I'm not going to talk a ton about this character, but just enough to say that she's kind of a foil to Lore, especially in showing how Lore kind of was to begin with, whenever Laura just received, her capabilities, her power. This new character, though, decides to use it very differently, and so the direction she goes is quite off, and it's almost like what could have happened if Lore hadn't found her found family. And so it's neat. I'll say that. I don't want to go too deeply into this character. But it's neat. And what else? Let's see, as with the first book, in terms of representation, our main character is a queer, poor black girl, and there are other queer, poor black people in the cast, especially among the found family group. And what else? Oh, similar to the first book, there's found family and there's also romance, so lots of good elements. And I love the aspect that really gets shown a lot in this book, but it kind of sparks its beginning in the first book's ending, it's really clear that Laura is at her strongest whenever she just really knows who she is and what she wants. When that is at her most stable, she is able to do so much. And I love that. I love that way of having that kind of focus her abilities. And then speaking of like the abilities and the magic, the world building is still pretty, like, it's pretty centered and focused around Paris. And I really appreciate that, because they could have like done the entire world kind of a thing, but they really kept it a conflict that is very close to Lore's home, you know, and still expanding though on what the magic stuff entails and the gods that have to do with giving the magic, that kind of thing. I thought that was a neat way of expanding the world without it getting so big that I feel like it's going too fast, or that I'm going, you're losing me, I don't understand, you know. So it kept it very understandable and kept it very much a story that was primarily about Lore's inner conflict, and her relationships. Yeah. Now, I really hope I didn't forget anything major that I wanted to bring up, because I actually read this book a few days prior from now that I'm recording, but I just didn't get the chance to, like, actually write down my notes until today. That's why I try to tend to do this, like, do the notes and the recording right after reading, but sometimes it becomes more like this. I still think I covered most of everything I wanted to talk about, but just, I'm going a lot off of feelings more than details at this point, based on what I remember. This book was a really enjoyable experience. I had a lot of fun reading it, and I just felt really motivated to know where it was going to go for the ending. And I feel like the character of Lore really ended in a place that was so much more solid than I was expecting, and I love how it happened. So, Lore by the end, very satisfying. In case that helps motivate you for reading, as you read like the first part of this book. It's a very good place for Lore to end, you know. And I can still see like Lore having more adventures and doing more stuff in the future that could be written about. But for the duology of talking about Lore's breaking down and pulling away from being so entangled in the ballet life, to her then finding her own passion and her own life outside of it, having 2 books for that is a really solid way of showing that portion of her life, I think. Yeah. There's another part of this book that really stood out to me, and I'm trying to think of how to describe it without spoiling anything. I think just there was something about Lore that really pleasantly surprised me, is that whenever she found her footing again, she really was so adamant about not letting anyone else use her. Like, no one. Doesn't matter how powerful they are or how insurmountable the odds seem. She really just went, no, I am done being used. I am no longer a ballerina. I'm no longer your puppet. I am my own person doing my own things. It may be dark, it may be weird, maybe nobody else in the world agrees with me, but this is how I am. there's a particular moment that was so solid for wrapping up all of that. Yeah. So if you want a book that kind of has all of that in it, I recommend this one. And yes, you gotta read the first book before getting to this one, because it really is just a really nice duology together. Yeah. Oh, that moment was so good. And I think that is actually it of my notes, so that's all I have for off the top of my head. For today. And yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out